are live on Facebook. Thank you everyone who's joining. I can see everyone popping into the room. We're here talking about writing a book, which is such a simple thing to say and such a difficult thing to do. And as I think everyone in this panel will absolutely agree, there are many different ways to write books, and I think we've got a nice different selection of authors here who are at different places in their career and write in different ways. And I know I've spoken to a couple of you about your processes, so I already know that we write differently, so that's fantastic. We're just going to quickly run through and get people to introduce themselves, and I'm going to start with Clare Ashton. For the purpose of this, we'll be calling her Tig, so we don't have two Claires, so starting with Tig.
Hi, I'm Clare Ashton, Tig on Facebook and other social media. I write contemporary romances. I've written about 6 books, all with different flavours, quite dark and twisty tales to frothy light stories or family dramas even, but all romances at their heart. I'm a bit of a romance addict. I like books with an emotional roller coaster, and romances always have them.
Wonderful, thanks so much, Tig. Emma Nichols from her French. Are you in a barn, did you say?
Yeah, just sat outside a barn at the moment, and it's actually just started to rain.
Okay, well, introduce yourself and then run in.
Week, so yeah, it's a novelty. So Emma Nichols, I write romance, bordering on kind of love stories as well. So I'm kind of in an exploratory phase of, and so again crossing over the genres a little bit, and I have done historical, have done contemporary, but always with an element of suspense and twists and turns. It's kind of a key thing for me.
That's great. And Rosy, relatively new to the genre, do you want to introduce yourself?
Yes, so I'm Rosy Dee. I'm a graphic designer by day. I'm brand spanking new to the writing world. My debut novel is a slow burn romantic comedy set in the UK, which is currently with my editor, due for release September, October time, hopefully.
Fantastic, welcome.
Thank you. And
Claire, second time in 2 panels.
Hello. As we discovered in the last one, I'm the rule breaker. I predominantly write contemporary romance with a few murder mysteries chucked in. I've just released my 13th book. So yeah, my books kind of range through everything. Depends what I want to write about that day. So.
And Claire is very, very kindly standing in for Jade Winters, who had a previous engagement with filming, and for some reason filming overtook.
Filming?
How rude.
Filming?
Instead
I
of
could have stood in for her. I could have done that, and she could have done this.
She's a director, isn't she?
I could have done that. I could have done that.
Oh, well, that's what you should have said. You should have told her, but too late now. You're stuck with us, I'm afraid. Okay, so we've had some questions coming beforehand. We're also going to have some questions, no doubt, coming into the Facebook Live. So if you're on Facebook Live and you have any questions about the process of writing a book that you'd like to ask any of our wonderful panelists, then do put them in the chat there. But to start off with the questions that we had in from people before, the first one, quite a simple one, it sounds, but I'm going to say it's not. What is your process for writing a book? Emma, let's start with you as you're laughing.
I'm looking away, yes. Well, my process is changing. So from 3 years ago when I wrote Finding You and the trilogy in the Vincenti series, it was literally just in my head, on the page, and write it. And I think even the suspense side of it, or the twists and turns, weren't thought about in advance. Everything was very pantsy in that sense. And I'm starting to plot a little bit more. I think that'll probably be the end of my writing if I start plotting too much. It's a very different thing to have to plot something, and I've tried this before. Tried to think ahead a couple of chapters, and my character goes, "Why are we going there?" And it's almost like it takes over. So but I have to change it a little bit for other reasons, to make life a little bit easier for myself, because I'm writing more complex stuff now, so it needs to change a bit.
So Claire, what's been your process for writing a book?
So I'm a complete pantser. I just make it up as I go along. But I do tend to I'll have an idea that'll pop into my head for a while, and I'll kind of mull it over for a bit and think about it and think about whether or not that's actually going to be any interesting or not, and see where it kind of goes. And then I kind of outline it in my head that it's going to do this, that, and the other. And then I'll just start writing. And half the time it ends up somewhere completely different. But yeah, occasionally it gets me there. So yeah, I just start writing and then just keep, and I can tend to kind of do 3 or 4, like you were saying yesterday, 3 or 4 chapters, go back, edit that back again, carry on, and then you change something and you're like, oh bugger, I got to go all the way back now and change what they did back then. So I'm constantly doing that all the way through. So I've probably, by the time I get to the end of it, I've probably edited it about 15 times. So yeah, that's my process.
It sounds like an interesting journey that you have to keep going back and forward. Rosie,
time consuming.
Rosie, obviously you're on your debut novel, but what's your process been for sort of starting off?
Oh God, it's been a bit of a whirlwind for me, to be honest. I started out in absolute chaos because I got so excited about writing it that instead of starting from the beginning, I decided to write random chapters I wanted to include. So inevitably I got stuck, and I took myself off to a creative writing course and started my book from the beginning. But again, I didn't plan it out, I just let it flow. Then I decided to write a different book altogether with the help of a fiction masterclass, and that was a bit of a game changer for me because it made me realise how important plotting your whole story was, so you can visually see if you have enough conflicts and ups and downs, and you know that the story's flowing well and just everything making sense basically. So yeah, it's been a bit of a crazy time, but I'm hoping my process for the next book will be a lot more smooth.
do you think you're going to go with your masterclass sort of plotting in the future?
Yeah,
then?
I think so. Yeah. Bit of a structure.
It can be fun.
Yeah.
Tig, how about you? Are you what's your process? Do you plot, or are you not really for that?
Well, it's changed over. It depends on the book, and it's changed over time as well. I think I started out like a lot of people, just wanted to write a book, sat down and started, and didn't know where it was going, didn't really know how to get there either, and it was it works for some people, really didn't for me. It was a disaster. I didn't finish it. So then I went to the other extreme, which was plot, even nearly down to the chapter level, I think. I still do a lot of planning. I say planning, it's quite a lot of faffing, in fact, but I do take a lot of notes. I'll have pages and pages of notes before I start that first draft, snippets of dialogue. Before I start that first draft, I like to have a basic plot. There's a lot to think about in a romance, actually. I find, even if you're a plotter, there's like the progression of the romance, the relationship. You've got 2 main characters, and they both have an arc. You might have secondary characters, how they react to them. They may change over the novel. Your setting may even have a bit of an arc itself. So that worked quite well with my complex novels like The Goodmans and After Mrs. Hamilton, which are kind of ensemble books with a lot of threads intertwined. I had to plan those. I can't think of a way to do them otherwise. But with the last novel, I've relaxed it a bit. I always have a challenge for myself for each book, something new, and this time it was to go in deeper with the characters, let them stay together and find out about each other. It's all about, preconceptions and not judging a book by its cover and getting to know each other and accommodating each other. So I had to actually just tentatively start it and actually get to know the characters in the same kind of way and let it unravel a bit more. So it changes.
Yeah, I think that's true of most of us. I think most of us will go through a sort of different process. I know when I started, I just kind of thought, I'll tell a story, and then I just wrote a chapter, edited the chapter, and in the process of editing the last chapter, I kind of read it again and then went, well, then this will happen, and kind of went chapter by chapter, and then suddenly went, oh, I'm done. and that was it. And now I was like, yeah, sometimes I was done and it was like 40,000 words, and I was like, oh, I'm not done. I think I need to add something in here. So yeah, then I started being more of a plotter. So yeah, I think for a lot of us it would change, and you kind of learn things. And this, as you say, Tig, like it depends on the book you're writing. Sometimes you have to put a bit more plot in. So we have a question from Facebook from Jill, who says, as someone who loves listening to audiobooks, do you write so that the book will work when it's read aloud? So do you consider audio when you're actually writing your book? Rosie, let's start with our debut novelist.
Yeah, I mean, I haven't thought about that yet, to be honest with you, but I have got in the habit of reading aloud when I've written, because it's so different when you read it out. So yeah, I haven't thought about it for audio though, so fingers crossed it will work.
I think just reading it out at all is a good step in the right direction, and then yeah, as with anything, we all learn as we go. So yeah, you'll when you come across the problems, you'll know them.
Yeah.
Emma, how about you? Do you write with a view for audiobooks and later down the line?
Yeah, definitely more so now. Obviously, when I started, I didn't have a clue. I didn't have a clue that the book would go anywhere in the first place, let alone get to audio. So it wasn't even in the forefront of my mind. And that makes the audio very different, because there are some things that you just don't need in an audio, and you know, grunts and groans and things do not need to be grunted and groaned in an audio. It can make it sound really odd. So just taking account of those things, it makes a big difference, and I think it makes it easier potentially for the audio artist to deliver as well. So yeah, it's definitely part of the process now.
Yeah. Claire, how about you?
Yeah, I think definitely when you first start, you don't even contemplate that you're going to sell a book, never mind be able to make an audio book out of it. Because for me, audio books were like what real writers did, not people like me, you know. And so it didn't even enter my mind. And it was only sort of listening back to my first few audio books, and you're kind of thinking, well, I wish that sounded a bit different or whatever. But now what I do is I tend to just sort of say to the narrator, look, if you feel like you need to take that word out, take it out. If you feel you need to change that word, change it. If you want to ignore that full stop or that comma and just run on, just do it, you know, whatever you feel. And I think a lot of the times they're quite clever and savvy in the sense of they know what they can and should take out. And it's like sometimes I'll be going through the proofing and you kind of listen and you're like, hang on, that's not what it said. But actually, if you rewind it and listen to it again, you're like, I get why they did that, and so it's fine. Yeah. But yeah, it is definitely a different technique to kind of keep in the back of your mind. Sometimes I think when you are writing that you could potentially be doing that.
Yeah. How about you, Tig?
No, I haven't started audiobooks yet, but I have for the last 4 books done that edit of reading it aloud just to make it flow better, and it does result in quite a few changes, and I think it does help the book. But I imagine I'm going to learn a whole lot more when this year I'm going to start on trying to get some into audiobooks.
Oh, fantastic. Did you watch our audio panel yesterday?
I certainly did. It was brilliant. Actually, it's Anna Jeffries is the person I'm hoping to start with.
Yeah,
she's doing Emma Nichols books at the moment, isn't she?
Yeah, she's fantastic. So yeah, oh, fantastic, right? Gotta love it when that was our first panel and this is our last one. The connection. We have another question from the group from Kim, who says, do your characters just pop into your head, or do you ever need to get ideas from people watching, like going to coffee shops, airports and shopping? You know, back in the day when we used to be able to go out. So do characters just pop into your head, or do you go out and try to find characters sort of out in society? Let's start with Emma.
Characters come from so many different places, and I don't know, they've come from the in-laws, the outlaws, you know, they've come from all directions, and they're a merge of different people as well. So you get something in one and it blends with something else in the other. But it's also kind of driven by their function, their role, what they're doing, their job role, the interaction with the other character in the book as well. So I you know, I don't go and people watch to do that. I think, you know, I've watched people for a very long time, so I probably don't need to sit there. I might, if I'm in a position of having a coffee, go, oh, that was really interesting, and take it into a book. But I wouldn't deliberately go and people watch to say who are these characters going to be. They come to me, and I'm like, these are the characters, and what's the story around that now?
Yeah, cool. Rosie, how about you?
Yeah, I mean, quite similar really with the book I've written. It's I think I've made most of them up, but they all have characteristics of people I might know or have met in the past, so it's a bit of a mishmash really. But yeah, and you know, there's a bit of me in some of them, and yeah, it's just a bit of a mixture really.
Yeah, you kind of sort of taking a bit of what you already know and developing the character out of that. Yeah. Tig, how about you?
Yeah, pretty much the same. I don't tend to go looking, but yeah, no, you're always listening, really, aren't you? And taking little interesting bits in for plot and characters when you're an author, and using them, and nicking from your friends and your relatives. So yeah, very much similar.
Yeah, and in the chat, Tig, people are very excited about the idea of you releasing some audiobooks.
Oh, good stuff.
You've already sold a few by the looks of it.
Excellent.
Claire, how about you? Do you go people watching for ideas for characters?
I do people watch, but not for characters. The characters have they've like Emma said, they've already appeared. They're already telling their story and nattering away in the back of your mind. But when I'm doing that kind of second or third draft, and I just want to tweak things and make things feel a little bit more real, a bit more realistic, then I might kind of just sit down in a coffee shop and watch people, you know, the way they just like scratch their face or something like that, and then that kind of thing might get added in as just a little additional detail. But yeah, I wouldn't, I just people watch because I'm nosy really, but I just, you know, I like listening in on conversations. Fun.
Yeah, you do. I know you do. I've watched you. Sometimes you'll be having a conversation with Claire and she'll be like to the table next to you, and you'll be like,
okay, do you know what they just said? Do you know what they just said?
Oh, did you hear that? Anyway, we have more questions from the group. Zuzia says, if you could go back to before you wrote your very first book, this won't be that far for Rosie, what writing advice would you give your past self? So let's start with, well, Claire, let's go back to you. What piece of writing advice would you give yourself before you typed your first words?
Well, first of all, I would tell myself that it doesn't matter that your grammar's crap, just go and write it. Because that put me off for a long time. I was part of that generation at school where they marked us for what we wrote and not how we wrote it. And so a lot of my grammar is missing. I've never been taught it at school. And now as an adult, I find it really difficult to take that kind of information in because I'm really not interested. So I spent a lot of time where I'd written something down that people would read and go, oh yeah, it's quite good, but, you know, and then I never really knew how to get past that but until I met Michelle, and she was like, I'll do it. So yeah, it was quite handy then. So yeah, I would have, if I would known that, I probably would have started writing a bit earlier and maybe had a bit more courage to publish a bit earlier.
Yeah, I think, yeah, courage of that sense can really be a barrier to entry to a lot of people. Yeah. Tig, how about you? What kind of advice would you give yourself?
Not to worry about people who tell you how to write. There are a lot of rules around it, kind of write it this way, be a plotter, or just keep trying different ways until you find something that works for you, because everyone is different. So not to worry if you can't write every day, don't worry, you can still be a writer.
Absolutely, that's very good advice. I think, you know, one of the reasons why we wanted to do this panel was to sort of demonstrate there are a lot of different writers out there, a lot of different ways to write a book. There is no right or wrong way, even though there's a lot of prescribed ways necessarily to do it. It's not necessarily that important. Emma, what advice would you give yourself?
I had an interesting experience actually when I launched my first book, and it was a bit of a timing issue in the context of talking to an editor, because I was already self-publishing, and I was actually looking for coaching at that time. And I just, after a couple of weeks of interaction with the editor, she emailed and said, just because you've got a computer and a laptop or you know, and a keyboard doesn't mean you can write. So fortunately, I had already put the book out. If I hadn't have done, I would not have put the first book out. And I think that, so therefore my advice to myself would be consistently the same. Editors have their own perspective, and they're not wrong. It's their perspective, in the same way that a review is the reviewer's perspective. And I think you have to make sure that the editing, or you know, your editor, whoever you're working with, it reads from the same page as you, and that they can work with your style and the way that you do stuff, because there are so many rules. And you know, maybe we'll talk about rules when we talk about reading to learn how to write. And if I had not published the book at the time, that book would not have gone out. And I think that I would never have actually then written the other 12 and 13th coming up. So, you know, a lot of readers would never have seen Emma Nichols writing. Somebody say, "Yay, that's great!" But no, I think most of them actually still come back for more. So, yeah, don't listen to everything you're told. Yeah,
very good advice. What about you, Rosie?
I'd tell myself to just get on with it, stop rereading and re-editing and editing, because I had a bad habit of going back and back and back all the time. I think, that's one thing I've learned, to just for the next one, just get it all down, you know, plot it and get it down. Don't worry so much about every little detail, because it can really bog you down, and you know, it becomes overwhelming, and then it makes you want to stop, and you feel you're not good enough, and you know, it just gets in a bad, you know, it doesn't work in your head that way. Do you know what, you know? Yeah.
No, I know what you mean. I was the same at first. We have another question from Facebook from some woman called Emma Radley, whoever that is. She said, what part of writing do you find hardest? Is it the plot, the characters, the setting? I'll give you a little, everyone's Tig is the one looking most like she has an answer. So
it's all bloody difficult. That's why. When I'm doing the first draft, I think this is the difficult bit. If I can get through this, everything's going to be fine. And then, of course, I do that and I get to the editing and think, oh God, I hate editing. It's so difficult. But when I get to the next edit, it'll be fine. But I'm tired then because I've been working on this book. So not to put anybody off writing, but I find it all difficult.
That's a very good answer. All of it. Absolutely all of it. Claire, how about you?
Yeah, I think, like with Tig, I think you become word blind after a while. You've read it and you've edited it, and you've read it and you've edited it and you've read it, and before you know it, you're skipping words. Because you just know it off by heart almost. And I think there comes a point where you have to just take your hands off it and give it to somebody else and say, can you just read that? And does it make any sense? And, you know, kind of let it go out there a little bit, because it just kind of, it can just drive you nuts, because you'll never be happy with it. You'll never be happy with it. You'll just constantly keep editing if somebody lets you. So at some point you have to say, no, I'm done. I'm not doing it anymore. Unless it comes back with a, that's rubbish. But yeah, I think you have to just, that's the hard bit for me, is knowing when to stop writing, stop editing, and just give it to someone else to look at.
So half our authors are basically saying everything's the hardest part. Rosie, did you find a certain bit hard, or was it just the whole process?
Yeah, I mean, I agree with everyone, and also fitting it around a 9 to 5 is pretty challenging sometimes. And I also found that the whole show don't tell aspect of writing can be a bit tricky sometimes, because when you're speaking and doing something, you know how it feels inside, or you know how it's coming out, but when you're trying to find the word to describe something, I found that quite a challenge at times, to be honest, and I need to find a book that can help me resolve that. So if you've got any recommendations.
I do.
Jay's got one.
Yeah, Sandra Girth.
Sandra Girth, Jay, you'll find her one. She's got quite a few.
Yeah, she's got a show to tell. She's also got a POV one. Yeah, absolutely. Sandra Gers have got some fantastic books. I will send you some links.
Thanks very much.
So we're all here to help, all colleagues in the author business. Emma, is there any specific bit, character setting, plot, or is it the whole bloody thing that's difficult?
There isn't one specific thing. I think it comes back to being able to hold information in my head, because as I write the first draft in one go, not all in one go, as in like, you know,
3 hours done.
Yeah,
well, no, I write it out from start to finish, and then I'll go back, and I'll have to add bits in where I've changed stuff, or the you know, it's moved on from where I thought it was going to go, and you know, it's gone in a completely different direction. Then it needs to catch up with the front end. So that whole catching up process and making a line back through the script again can be challenging, and especially if there has been, again, a time space, because time is not easy. I've got 2 small children, and you know, a demanding wife, you know, and you know, and with COVID as well. I mean, I'm not even going to go there. That's just been an absolute nightmare to try to fit that all in, and it does affect your brain. So it you know, it affects my brain, put it that way. So I do think that's the difficult bit, is actually holding all that information, which is why perhaps plotting a bit more might help that process. I'm hoping.
You're hoping. Yeah. I think plotting does. That's helped me a hell of a lot when I finally had a good talk to myself and said, if you plotted, it would make your life easier. And yeah. Took a while though. It took about 10 books. So, Susie asks, what do you do about writer's block? Either if you've had writer's block, what have you done, or what would your recommendation be to someone who did have writer's block? Rosie, how about you?
I've had quite a bit of writer's block, actually. I've just kind of taken myself away and had a break and come back to it, or read a book to maybe, you know, get that creative flow again. And sometimes I just have to kind of sit down and force myself to do it, even if I just write a page, or, you know, 100 words or something. Just, yeah, I mean, it happens, but that's what I've been doing, basically. Just take myself away and come back, and usually that helps, because you've given your brain a break.
Yeah. Take a break, take a step back. How about you, Tig?
If it's sort of minor, you've got a bit stuck in the book you're doing there, I find doing a little bit of research the settings are very important to me. I always want it takes me quite a while to write books, about at least 9 months, so I want somewhere really good to stay for that time. So I find maybe do a little bit of research on the setting somewhere nice for a bit, just give myself a break, and usually that will inspire me for a new scene or an extra little detail, and then that'll usually get my energy back up again.
Excellent. Yeah. Claire, how about you?
Well, this is the reason why I always have 3 or 4 whips on the go, because if I get stuck with one, I start writing something else, and I just keep doing that, and so I end up with, like, that one's just sitting there and I'm 10,000 words into a new one, and then I'll go back to that one for a bit, and then I'm oh no, I'm bored of both of them, I'll start a new one. And that's how I can, and I tend to have like 3 or 4 on the go all the time. So that is my shift, just to get out of one character's set of life and get into something else, just kind of dislodges them, and then it frees it up, and I just can go back to it then.
Does anyone else work on multiple projects at once?
No, I'm not multitask at all.
No, I can't either. I think that's a real skill set you've got there, Claire. There's no way I couldn't have 2 at the same time. That would melt my brain.
I think the most I've had is 5 at one time.
Goodness.
But 2 of them I've never bothered with. Sometimes it's just I might just write a scene for something, or a scene for something, a book I've already written, or just anything, you know. But sometimes that can turn into a sequel. So, you know.
That's amazing. Emma, how about you? Writer's block, have you struggled with it? What advice do you have?
I think those small points, as Tig was saying, come out as a function of where the book is at and where the story is at, and if I've missed something in the that should be in there, the storyline, and it's not flowing as well as it should do. And that requires potentially a bit of reworking, but usually I'll get on the trainer and I'll train. And if I want anything creative to come to me, I literally just get on the trainer and train. So it's exhausting, but hey, you stay fit at the same time. It's 20 minutes, half an hour, plodding away on the trainer, and literally ideas will come, and that goes away. I've not had anything that hasn't lasted, that hasn't been a major flaw in the plot. So if the major flaw in the plot takes longer to resolve, the words, I'm quite lucky in that way. Words will come easily if I know how everything is flowing out, which generally comes from the characters. But this is why I'm changing it a little bit now, because it's the more complex the plots get, then actually the more I need to give that more focused attention up front. Yeah. The only thing I can do, I can stop and write a short, but I could not start a whole new book. Because the characters are so ingrained in my life on a day that that would just be really, they would kind of merge, and that would be really hard.
I would have to probably forget my parents' names if I had to make space for another set of characters, another book, and I just don't think they're gonna like that. I don't think I'm gonna be able to, there's no room up there. Maria is asking, what software program do you use to write your books? Everyone's like, I reckon we're going to have 4 of the same answer here. Claire, what software program do you use?
I just use Word.
Rosie?
Simple as that.
Word.
Emma?
Word.
Tig?
Yeah, I was a software engineer for years and years, and I had to learn lots of IT things, and I had enough, so I just stick with Word, I'm afraid.
Yeah, I also use Word, although someone recommended something else to me, because it crashes now and then on my Mac, so I might not be Word soon, which people are excited.
There was one that I started with actually, but it's not for Macs at the moment. I don't think. It's called the Novel Factory. And there's lots of categories where you can, it kind of helps you write it basically, and you can input, your character profiles and just loads of things. So that was quite a good tool. But then I got a bit overwhelmed.
I used to use Scrivener, which I know some authors swear by, but it just gets very, for me, just like
I tried it. Yeah, I tried it. It was just too confusing.
Yeah.
That's what notebooks are for.
Well,
just write on an envelope.
It has like a noteboard thing, and you can go in and then have a look at your plot, your setting, or your character. But you know what? I have like an actual. I have one of these. It's called a notepad, and I write it in that, and then I don't need to click on another button and lose my manuscript, which I did twice. So
I've got these. Look.
Yeah.
Bits of paper.
We're so old school.
And a pen.
Some works. Yeah.
I have piles and piles of notes when I'm plotting my stuff and doing scenes, and I will just grab the nearest bit of paper. And unfortunately, one time I just wanted to write down some details of a sex scene and realised I'd written it on the back of my son's homework. So it's not always the best idea. Definitely dog out that one.
Yeah, you definitely.
I did that on an aeroplane once with my wife's Sudoku magazine. Just wrote a sex scene on the back of it. Didn't tell her.
Did she find it?
Yeah. That made the flight fun.
And for legal reasons, that's all we can say. Okay. So we have another question here. Have you read books on writing crafts? And if so, which ones do you use? Okay. Claire, shall we start with you?
I have downloaded the ones we were saying earlier from Jay. I've not read them cover to cover, but I've kind of flipped through and picked out little bits when I need to, a little nose at stuff. And I have the usual, thesaurus and synonyms and antonyms books and things like that at hand. But yeah, that's about my limit.
That's where you're up to at the moment.
Yeah.
Tig, how about you?
Yeah, definitely. Especially when starting out, when I'd written a couple of books, but I knew there was things wrong with them, but I didn't know how to fix them. So and I still, in between books, I tend to top up and have a new perspective on things. And actually, Rosie, for the show and tell, this book here, I'll email you. The Self-Editing for Fiction Writers. This is just such a brilliant book. You know, all the rules you hear about, like show and tell. Yeah. This one, it explains them so clearly and in a not dogmatic way, that makes you really understand it, but also gives you the freedom to apply it without having to worry about, am I doing it right? That is just the one I always recommend, and the most useful, and that I'll come back to dip into. But now I'm always picking up books like this one, actually, How to Write Romantic Comedy. Picked that up recently, and then actually quite an entertaining read. So yeah, so in between books I do top up.
Fantastic. Rosie, how about you?
Yeah, so I did the fiction masterclass instead, because for my first book I wanted some face-to-face interaction and the ability to ask questions to a real person, which was really beneficial for me. Other than that, if I've come across any problems during writing, I've just, researched online, and I've listened to a few podcasts and things, and YouTube's quite a good place to go as well for advice sometimes, depending on what you're looking for.
Definitely. I learned how to parallel park on YouTube. Emma, how about you?
Yeah, I've read a few from different sources, and again, along the same lines, show and tell, POV, and those kind of things. And I think it can stifle you. So I think one has to be careful when reading this stuff, because there's a difference between the art and the science, and the art is what makes every author's writing different, and the application of the science through that art. And so, for me, if I was to read stuff, I could get very bogged down in trying to get it right rather than actually writing. So I tend to I have looked at it, and I found actually working with a coach is much more effective for me, because it's more practical and pragmatic, and being able to get a better understanding of the art rather than just the science.
Yeah, that's really interesting. That's a good perspective. Jojo's asking, do you use pen and like paper and pen, or is all of your writing digital? Does anyone sit there and obviously we're writing our sex scenes on various bits of paper, but is anyone actually like writing chapters or entire books on paper? So well, Claire's shaking her head, so I'm gonna say that's no from you.
I wouldn't even be able to read it afterwards. I'd just be like, because I'd be writing it so fast, because trying to get it all down, and it would just look like the doctor had written it. So I don't bother now. I'm much better. I use like a notepad on my phone if I'm really stuck somewhere and I can't get to my laptop. I will write down just like ideas, like a couple of sentences with a pen, or I'll write out a timeline. So if I've got to remember that they did this on a Thursday and, it's 2 weeks later and I need them to have done something else, then I have a timeline that's on pen and paper.
Yeah.
But, or just remembering people's names and ages and things like that, I jot them down in a notepad. But just the actual story, no, it's all typed up straight away onto Word.
Yeah. Rosie, how about you? Are you digital, or are you old school with pen and paper?
Oh, digital. It's so much quicker. I mean, I have... I write notes on Post-its and notebooks, same as Claire. But no, I think it'd take way too long.
Tig, how about you?
I mean, I'm not sure if I can write a whole scene out sort of longhand with a pen anymore, because notes I do, but actually writing it, I'm always going back almost immediately on a paragraph and editing it there and then. So I'm not actually sure if I could do it even.
No, I definitely couldn't. Emma, how about you?
No.
No.
No, I can't. No. I type really quickly, and as Claire said, the words come quickly. I would just get really frustrated. Sorry, I had to move indoors because my battery was dying on my phone, so I was going to get blotted out. But no, I'm back in. So yeah, no, I couldn't do that.
Oops. Oh, yeah, we're losing Emma a bit there. She's showing off her posh villa.
Yeah, she might have to go back outside.
Yeah. You're freezing up at the moment, Emma. We'll carry on and hopefully technology will catch up with you.
Can you hear?
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah, she's kind of back.
Yep.
Yeah, and you're back. Okay, so right, that's no to the pen and paper quite definitively. That Emma Sterner Radley woman's back again. She says, are you a fan of writing courses or classes? Actually, specifically classes. Now, Rosie, you spoke about, is it masterclass? You said, was that like masterclass that you see advertised everywhere, or is it a specific thing?
No, it's with a company called the London Writers Club, and it's run by a woman called Jack Burns, who was a literary agent. Commissioning editor at Random House and editorial director at HarperCollins. So it's a course, it's 4 full days, but it spans over 4 months. So you get all that time in between to do homework and, you know, contact Jack and discuss things, and you get 4 Skype sessions with her as well.
Mm-hmm.
And you're perfecting your first 3 chapters and writing a synopsis basically, and going through your novel from start to finish to make sure you've got everything, you know, the tension and the conflicts and everything.
Yeah. Did you find that was quite a turning point when you were writing then, to sort of go from your process before to something a lot more guided?
Yeah, definitely. It really helped because, yeah, I was missing some stuff that I now have, hopefully.
I'm sure it's perfect. Claire, how about you? Writing classes or courses for you?
No, I'm not really a joiner inner type thing to do classes and stuff. I mean, even aqua aerobics is too much for me. No, I don't know. I think maybe there's a part of me that thinks actually if I did one of those classes, I'd probably never write again, because I'd probably feel so so intimidated by it that I'd be like, oh God, I'm rubbish. So no, I've not done one as yet.
No. Emma, how about you? Courses and classes, learning to write and practicing your craft?
Yeah, I like that. I'm going on with Robin in September.
Oh, with Global Wordsmith, yeah?
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, no, we were supposed to be going in May, and it would have been fantastic, but obviously didn't happen. So I'm looking forward to that. Again, it's that interaction. Yeah. Reading a book doesn't work for me, but actually being face to face and being able to ask questions and just to get a different perspective. It's like when authors get together, but you know, sometimes we don't chat words, when actually it would be kind of nice to chat words sometimes.
Yeah, definitely. And Tig, how about you?
I did earlier on, very early on. It was on a course with quite a lot of arrogant blokes who are very confident about their writing ability. It rather put me off. I think I should probably try again with a more mixed crowd, perhaps.
Yeah, no, I can imagine the kind of group you're in. Tig, Melissa Therese is asking, is the self-editing book by Brown or Bradburn?
It is Brown and King.
Brown and King. There you go. Okay, we have a question from Phoenix, who is saying, what is the best perk to being a writer? Because we have been quite negative, really, saying how hard it is. Is there anything that we actually enjoy about it? Emma, do you want to kick that one off?
I love it, and I love it because of the flexibility that you have. And I write every day, and when the children are at school, that's been perfect, because 5 hours a day, that's a good chunk of time every single day of the week, and it works around school. So it's fantastic, and it really is fun, and it's very creative, and it's very enthralling, and you can get so engaged and involved in what you're doing that you really I feel a great buzz out of taking my characters to a particular place or moving things around. It's just fantastic. I mean, you can't get any better, and there's no boss telling you something else going on, in the background. You're your own boss, so it works pretty well.
Fantastic. Rosie, obviously you're just starting out now, but what's been the best perk so far in your sort of start of your career? Where do you sort of hope it will go?
Well, I mean, seeing your story unravel and come to life is pretty amazing, and creating the happy ending fills my heart with pure joy, and that was my favourite part of the book, actually, I think. And building up the chemistry of the main characters was really fun to write as well. And also being able to work in your pajamas is a pretty big perk, I think, apart from if you have to answer the door.
Oh, you know, you just leave that. After you're beyond your second or third book, you're too important to open the door anymore.
Leave it by the door.
Yeah, I'm a reclusive author. I don't speak to people. Claire, what about you? What's your perks of being a writer?
Yeah, I think it is that flexibility of being able to choose your own hours. Once you've got to the point where you are earning a living and you don't have to rely on going out and doing that second job, then yeah, I get up some mornings and I'm like, I'm not going to do any work today. I'm going to have the day off, and I can, and I'll work tonight instead. Or friend will ring and say, do you fancy going out for brunch or a coffee? And I'm like, yeah, I can do that. I can fit that in now. I don't, you know, I'm flexible with everything in life now. Whereas I used to be stuck to that alarm clock, you know, and being forced to work around everybody else. Now I just do what I want to do when I want to do it, and I write a book as quickly as I want to write it, and I get it out there as quickly as I want to write it, and I can write about whatever I want to write about, and it's just great. I don't think there's anything to not like, really.
Yeah, except for the whole editing thing.
Apart from actually having to write the book, but you know.
Yeah, actually having to get those words
work, but it gets in the way.
Tig, what about you? What do you think of the best perk of being a writer?
I mean, I love dreaming up stories. I really do. I love dreaming up romance stories. I'd want to do it even if it wasn't. So I do it as a part-time job because my wife works very long hours. We've got 2 kids, so I'm doing the chores and taking the kids to school and doing homework with them. So having a flexible part-time job is perfect. So I get to see them in holidays, and so practically it's brilliant, as you say, the flexibility. But no, I do find actually writing it out is work at times. But no, I love dreaming up stories, and you know, it's very fulfilling when you get that reader who comes across your book and really loves it and it really connects to them. And even better if it's kind of becomes a comfort reread for them. That's really satisfying. That's quite a perk.
Yeah,
absolutely, definitely. Here's a question then: Would any of you ever go back and rewrite a book that you've already released? Obviously, Rosie's not going to. So
not yet.
No. You went with the masterclass training straight away, so hopefully you won't have to do that. Claire, how about you? Would you go back and rewrite a book you've already released?
I've considered it, and then I didn't, because I kind of thought, firstly, I don't have the time because I'm still writing the next one. But I kind of look at it, it's like a learning curve. It's like I'm hopeful that if you picked up the first one and you liked it, then it can't have been that bad. And if you then went and picked up the second and the third and the fourth and so on, you would have noticed that actually my writing's probably got a little bit better. And then you'll keep going with that flow, that the idea is that actually the more I write, the better I'm going to get at it. So I don't know.
You've considered it, but you're probably unlikely.
Probably unlikely.
Yeah. Emma, how about you?
No. The reason I wouldn't do it is because I'm in different space. So it's a little bit what Claire's saying. You know, you are in a different headspace. Your writing has changed, and so actually fundamentally, the more you know, the more you would probably have to change in that book. And before you're not rewriting, you're actually recrafting the whole thing. And I think, you know, the sales do come into it a bit. How many of those books are you going to sell if you're relaunching the same book? You know, are people going to buy it just because you've decided to rewrite it? I think I'd rather perfect my craft by writing a new story, and trying different styles within that than going back and rewriting. Re-editing, yes, but that's different.
Yeah.
Edit again, to go with a new pair of eyes and edit it again, that's a different thing.
Definitely. Tig, how about you? Would you go back and rewrite something you've already released?
No, I always want to move on to something new and fresh. So yeah, edit it, yes. But no, I don't even like writing sequels very much. When I've got to the end of the last 3 books have been quite long, sort of over 100k words. So I'm looking for something new after those.
Yeah, you don't want to go back to the beginning and start them all again. Okay, are characters or plot more important to you, and why? Rosie, do you want to kick this one off?
Sure. Personally, for me, the characters are more important. I think you can have a fantastic, exciting plot, but if the characters aren't relatable and you don't engage, if they don't engage you or draw you in somehow, it feels a bit flat. I think you want someone to root for and invest in. I mean, I do anyway. I think the characters drive the plot, and there wouldn't be a story without them. But that's my opinion.
Let's see if everyone agrees. Tig, what do you think? Character or plot?
I've got to think both. I find I like plotting and I like intriguing characters, and I find that they both feed off each other as well. I like the twisty tales, give people a bit of a surprise. I think it's probably only the last book which was very character driven and really went into depth with those. But yeah, usually I like both.
Oh, what a cop out. Emma, what do you think?
I'm going to cop out as well then, because I agree with you. No, because they do drive each other, and I don't write. I suppose I write stuff that it has those twists and turns in it, and so they're an important part of it. They're an important part of the character's journey as well, and the discoveries along the way. So they do work together. I will generally come up with characters first, in the sense that, all right, I might have a very broad idea of the story, but I need to know who those characters are before I can write. Absolutely, I have to feel them. They have to be part of my world before I can, even take them on their plot journey, as it were.
Yeah. Claire, how about you? Character or plot? Or both?
I'm not sure. Well, I tend to have the plot turns up in my head first, the kind of idea of what might make an interesting story, and whether that comes from another book or a TV show or the news report or whatever, it will be, oh, I wonder what happened if somebody was in the middle of that, or somebody won the lottery and blah blah blah, and then from that the character will appear. So I suppose I'm slightly plot driven more than character, but then once the characters have appeared, the plot could change, so it will then move with them.
You're a fickle thing, aren't you?
I know. I told you I'm a rebel. I don't do anything that I'm supposed to.
Don't obey any of those rules. Okay, right. Shall we quickly run through and talk about either our upcoming or latest release? Let's have a chat about what we're currently working on. Well, Claire, shall we start with you little rebel?
Well, as I said in the earlier panel, I have just released a book. My 13th novel is a romance, What Happened in Vegas. That's about a woman who goes to Vegas, gets really, really drunk one night and ends up marrying a stranger, and then has to decide whether or not they're going to give that a go. So I thought I'd start at the end and work my way backwards. But I'm working on my Christmas story. So there's a little novella that's going to come out at Christmas. There is a crossover from my detective story into a romance, because I tend to work around the whole universe revolves around the same sort of place and characters. They're all linked. And then I have the number 4 and hopefully last in the series of Cam Thomas, but who knows. So yeah, that's my 3 on the go, with 1 just done. So.
Is that all you're working on? Are you
at the moment?
Oh, okay. Rosie, do you want to tell us about your upcoming debut?
Sure. So basically, I haven't written the blurb yet.
That's all right. You can do it now. Right. Workshop it.
Just waffle.
It's about an unlucky in love designer called Madsen who meets and falls for her favourite lesbic author, but soon learns that she's engaged to be married. However, their friendship develops. And things take a sudden turn when Madsen uncovers a secret that could jeopardize their blossoming relationship.
Ooh.
That's
That
what
sounds
it's
interesting. And when's that out? Did you say September, October time?
hopefully September, October, yeah.
Looking forward to that. Emma, do you have a latest release or new release you want to talk about?
Yeah, so Cosa Nostra came out in April. It seems like a lifetime ago. And Cosa Nostra 2 is coming out as soon as my editor agrees that it's worthy of being printed. So that could be. I was hoping for August, but I've been stuck in France, so it's going to be September, or even into October, depending on how much more work I need to do on it. But yeah, so Cosa Nostra 2.
Fantastic, looking forward to that. And Tig, how about you?
My latest is Finding Jessica Lambert. It's about a young movie star who's on the verge of burnout, and she runs away on the streets of London and meets a woman who seems to be the only person who doesn't recognise her, and they strike up a friendship, and it's an intimate sort of tender tale with always the odd twist or turn. And next I'm just taking the summer off with the kids and being mum.
Good on you. Yep. I think that's a fantastic idea. I think, we could all do taking the summer off.
What about you, Amanda? What are you working on?
I'm writing a Christmas book, Claire. I really wish I didn't do it during a heat wave, but
I know, it's really hard.
Like an idiot.
You know why I got all these different whips going on.
Well, I'm only working on the one, mind you, because I'm lazy. Thank you all so much for coming and talking to us about your process of writing a book, and to everybody who's been watching this panel and all the other panels. It's been so much fun. It's a shame that we can't meet in person and that South Coast had to be cancelled due to that little pandemic thing, but we will meet up again.
What's a plague between friends?
Exactly, but apparently, go virtual. Self-isolate you. So yeah, we are hoping we'll be back next year. If not, we'll be virtual again, or maybe virtual again anyway. We'll see how we go. Maybe. One thing I did want to bring up is if you've been watching all of these panels, you'll notice that we are all incredibly white, and we have spoken to UK authors of colour, but unfortunately there are so few of them and we don't know many of them. So if you are an author of colour and you think, why wasn't I on that panel? It's probably because Claire or myself just don't know you. So please get in touch, even if you're not an author.
Come and say hi.
Come and say hi, whoever you are. If you're an author in the UK, whether you've been South Coast or not, or anything like that, do get in touch. This is not an exclusive set of panels. We've literally just dragged the rabble in. That's why you can see all these people here. But yeah, so thank you to everybody who attended, and anyone who wants to attend next year, just get in touch with Claire or I. We'll put all our contact details. Everybody's welcome. And I hope everyone had a fantastic event. This will remain live on Facebook, and we will also be uploading it to YouTube. Claire, do you have anything you'd like to say as a sort of...
I do. I would like to just thank you and Natalie mainly, because you have done most of the work. I've kind of just made a few posters basically, and chatted to people. It's been fun. So you and Natalie have done all the technical stuff that I have no idea how to do, and you've done the really hard shifts of sitting in here. I think people watch these and think, oh, it's a bit of fun and everything, and they are, but it's quite hard work. It's really hard work to keep that ticking over and to keep it looking as casual and fun, and making it as casual and fun, which you guys have done an excellent job at. So I just want to say really you both,
thanks,
and a big thank you to all of the authors for taking part and for jumping on board with us, because like we say, it was quite a last minute thing we decided to do, so it's been really good fun, and we will do definitely something again, I think, and to all those readers out there that have supported it and have turned up and watched and will probably continue to watch this, and who keep buying our books and keep us writing. That's what it's all about. So yeah, thank you.
Absolutely, thank you, and we're signing off now for our South Coast Virtual 2020. Bye everyone.
Bye bye.